where everybody knows your name. That piano melody isn't just a song, it's a key that unlocks the warmest memories of our lives. For 11 seasons, Cheers was more than a bar. It was home. It was the sanctuary where we escaped our troubles, finding comfort in a lovable cast that felt like family. We watched the reruns every night to feel that safety again. But behind the clinking glasses and the timeless humor lay a quiet tragedy. We watched a beloved coach die before the final call and a brilliant psychiatrist battle demons that nearly buried him. Tonight, we step behind the counter to honor the silent struggles of the extremely talented people who gave us the best evenings of our lives. Kirstie Alley as Rebecca Howe. Before she was the corporate climber's worst nightmare, Kirstie Alley was a woman searching for her place in the artistic world. Born in the winter of 1951, specifically January 12th, she spent her early years far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. She was 31 years old when the call came that would change her life, but it was a call fraught with pressure. She wasn't just joining a show, she was replacing a beloved lead character stepping into a well-oiled machine that had already captured the heart of America. It was a terrifying leap for an actress who had to prove she could hold her own against the sharpest comedic minds on television. As Rebecca Howe, she gave us a character who was outwardly made of steel, but inwardly crumbling. We loved her because she was a beautiful disaster. She tried so hard to project the image of a successful, untouchable executive, yet she would dissolve into tears over a broken heel or a failed romance. Her chemistry with the cast wasn't built on sexual tension, but on a hilarious, neurotic combativeness that breathed new life into the series. She was the queen of the breakdown, turning pathetic moments into comedic gold. However, the laughter she generated on screen often masked a complex and controversial reality off-screen. While she found immense success, she also found a deep and unwavering commitment to the Church of Scientology, a devotion that became the defining architecture of her private life. This dedication came at a cost. When the time came for the cast to reunite or cross paths in the Frasier spin-off, she was the notable absence. Her refusal to reprise the role of Rebecca was rooted in a conflict between the show's medical psychiatry themes and the doctrines of her faith. It was a lonely stance, one that separated her from the ensemble that had once been her family. Her years following the closure of the bar were a mixture of reality television reinvention and public battles with personal image. She fought to remain relevant in an industry that is notoriously unkind to aging women, often using her own struggles with weight as a vehicle for comedy and connection. But time is a thief that eventually comes for us all. The vibrancy that defined her existence was cut short when she passed away on December 5, 2022. The world lost her at the age at death of 71. In the end, Kirstie Alley remains a testament to resilience and the ability to reinvent oneself in the face of impossible expectations. She is remembered not just as the woman who replaced Diane, but as the woman who carved out her own unforgettable space at the bar, proving that even the most neurotic among us deserve a place where everybody knows our name. Colasanto as Ernie coach, Pantusso. Long before he donned a baseball uniform or wiped down a counter, Colasanto was a man of the greatest generation. Born in 1924 in the hard Scrabble days before the Depression, he carried the weight of the mid-century world in his eyes. He was already a seasoned veteran of life, 58 years old, when Cheers premiered in 1982. He wasn't a fresh-faced starlet chasing fame. He was a working actor who brought decades of grit and experience to the set, looking for one final role to define his legacy. As coach, he was the heart of the show. In a room full of cynics and narcissists, Coach was pure innocence. We loved him because he was dim in the head, but brilliant in the heart. He often missed the punchline, yet he always understood the pain behind the joke. His relationship with the younger characters wasn't just that of a bartender. He was the confessor, the forgiver, and the man who could deliver a line of absolute nonsense with such sincerity that it broke your heart while making you laugh. But behind the sweet, befuddled smile, Colasanto was fighting a battle he knew he couldn't win. By the mid-1970s, his heart was already failing him, a condition exacerbated by years of alcoholism. He found sobriety in 1976, fighting his way back from the brink, but the physical damage had been done. During the third season, he hid the severity of his decline from his castmates, not wanting to burden the family he loved. He would check himself into hospitals, struggling to breathe, only to return to the set to deliver warmth to millions. Tragically, he never saw the show reach its ultimate legendary status. The darkness overtook him on February 12, 1985, when a heart attack silenced the bar's gentlest voice. The writers, out of profound respect, did not recast him. They let Coach pass away in the show as well, acknowledging that some spirits are simply irreplaceable. He left us at the age at death of 61. To this day, his portrait hung on the set of Cheers for years after he was gone, a silent vigil for the man who started it all. Nicholas Colasanto remains the eternal guardian of the bar, a reminder that kindness is the most enduring form of comedy. Harry Anderson as Harry the Hat Gittes. Harry Anderson was a man who seemed to step right out of a 1940s street corner and into the neon glow of the 1980s. Born in 1952, specifically October 14th, he spent his youth mastering the art of the con, not for malice, but for entertainment. He was 30 years old when he first walked onto the Cheers set, bringing with him a street performer energy that was electric and unpredictable. He wasn't just acting, he was performing magic, blurring the lines between the script and his own sleight of hand. As Harry the Hat, he was the rogue we couldn't help but root for. He was a grifter, a cheat, and a liar, yet he possessed a charm so potent that we happily let him deceive us. His appearances were sporadic, like a wandering wind that blew through the bar to shake things up. He brought a sense of danger and whimsy to the staid environment of the bar, proving that sometimes the bad guys are the most fun to watch. His incredible talent eventually became the reason we saw less of him at Cheers. The world demanded more of Harry Anderson, pulling him away to star as Judge Harry Stone in Night Court. But when the laughter of the sitcoms faded, he faced the harsh realities of nature. After retreating to New Orleans to live a life of magic and jazz, he was battered by the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. He saw his beloved city drown a trauma that reshaped his later years and sent him moving north in search of higher ground. He spent his final act in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, returning to his roots as a magician far away from the Hollywood machine. He sought a quieter magic in his twilight years. However, the final trick was played on April 16, 2018, when he passed away unexpectedly. He took his final bow at the age at death of 65. Harry Anderson is remembered not as a typical celebrity, but as a vaudevillian soul who wandered into our living rooms to show us a card trick, made us smile, and then vanished before we could figure out how he did it. Rosen as Al. In every story there are those who speak and those who simply endure. Rosen belonged to a generation that valued presence over volume. Born in 1910, a full decade before the Roaring Twenties, he had lived a lifetime before the cameras ever found him. He was the elder statesman of the set, 72 years old when Cheers opened its doors in 1982. While others were building careers, Al was already in his golden years, finding a second wind in the background of television history. To the casual viewer, he was just Al, the man at the bar. But to the true fan, he was an anchor. He represented the reality of a neighborhood pub, the regulars who don't have grand story arcs or dramatic romances, but who are simply there. He was the master of the well-timed one-liner, often cutting through the absurdity of the main cast with a dry, gravelly observation. His Sinatra jokes and curmudgeonly demeanor provided the texture that made the bar feel real. There were no scandalous headlines or public breakdowns for Rosen. His struggle was the quiet, invisible battle of aging in an industry obsessed with youth. To be a background actor is to be essential yet often overlooked, to work in the shadows of giants while holding the scene together. He carried the dignity of the working man, showing up day after day, even as his years advanced into the 80s. He remained loyal to the bar until the very end of his life. He did not retire to a villa or write a tell-all memoir. He simply kept his seat at the counter until he could no longer hold it. He passed away on August 2nd, 1990, while the show was still on the air, leaving an empty stool that felt heavier than anyone expected. He departed this world at the age at death of 80. Al Rosen proved that you don't need to be the star to be a star. He was the texture of the painting, the background note that made the chord complete. Without him, the bar would have been just a set. With him, it was a place. Keene Curtis as John Allen Hill. Keene Curtis was a man of the theater, a creature of refinement and posture. Born in 1923, specifically February 15th, he was cut from a cloth of classical training and stage discipline. He was 59 years old when the Cheers era began, and he had already conquered Broadway, holding a Tony Award for his brilliance. He didn't come to the sitcom world to be a clown. He came to bring a touch of aristocratic antagonism to the blue-collar setting. As John Allen Hill, the owner of the restaurant above the bar, he was the perfect villain for Sam Malone. He was everything the bar wasn't: successful, snobbish, and sophisticated. We loved to hate him because he was so good at being superior. His sharp tongue and condescending sneer provided the friction the story needed. He elevated the insults to an art form, engaging in a war of words that made the victories of the underdog feel that much sweeter. Yet for a man of such theatrical pedigree, there is a hidden melancholy in being best remembered for being the mean guy on a sitcom. The breadth of his career, the applause of the live stage, and the nuances of his dramatic work were often overshadowed by the shadow of Melville's, the fictional restaurant he ruled. He lived in the space between high art and mass entertainment, a balancing act that requires a quiet humility behind the ego of the character. When the show ended, Keene Curtis didn't chase the spotlight of Hollywood tabloids. He continued to work with the dignity of a craftsman until his health began to fail. He battled the inevitable decline of age with the same stoicism he brought to his roles. On October 13, 2002, the final curtain fell. He left us at the age at death of 79. Keene Curtis reminds us that every hero needs a worthy foil. He brought a touch of class to the basement bar, proving that even the antagonist can be beloved if played with enough wit and style. George Wendt as Norm Peterson. George Wendt was a Chicago boy through and through, carrying the broad-shouldered spirit of the Midwest. Born in the autumn of 1948, specifically October 17th, he cut his teeth in the improv halls of Second City. He was 34 years old when he first sat on that corner stool, unaware that he was about to become the most recognizable beer drinker in history. He wasn't a leading man in the traditional sense. He was the everyman, the guy next door who just wanted to escape the pressures of the day. Norm. It wasn't just a name, it was a cultural phenomenon. George Wendt played Norm Peterson with a lethargic brilliance that resonated with anyone who ever dreaded a job or hid from a spouse. He was the anchor of the bar, the immovable object. We loved him because he represented our collective desire to just sit, drink, and let the world go by. His witty excuses for avoiding work and his love for the unseen Vera made him a legend of comedy. But playing a man whose life revolves around a bar stool comes with a peculiar type of typecasting. For decades, Wendt fought to be seen as more than just the guy with a beer in his hand. Furthermore, the physical toll of life and age caught up with him. He battled serious health issues, including congestive heart failure, a struggle that he managed with privacy and grace, shielded by the love of his real-life wife, Bernadette, the voice of Vera herself. He worked tirelessly, racking up over 170 credits, proving his range far exceeded the rim of a glass. But even legends must eventually rest. In this timeline we reflect upon today, the sadness is fresh. George Wendt passed away in his sleep on May 20th, 2025, finally reuniting with the great coach in the sky. He left us at the age at death of 76. George Wendt taught us that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply show up, take your seat, and be a friend. The stool may be empty now, but the echo of his name will ring in bars forever. Bebe Neuwirth as Dr. Lilith Sternin. Bebe Neuwirth was never meant to be a sitcom star. Her soul belonged to the dance floor. Born on New Year's Eve in 1958, she was a creature of discipline and precision. She was just 24 years old when she was cast for what was supposed to be a single episode. She had no interest in television, viewing it as a distraction from her true passion on the stage. But fate and the writers had other plans for the woman with the porcelain skin and the deadpan delivery. As Dr. Lilith Sternin, she was a revelation. She played the character with a robotic stiffness that was hysterically funny, acting as the perfect antidote to the warmth of the bar. We were fascinated by her because beneath the tight bun and the cold exterior, there was a simmering intensity. She turned intellect into a weapon and made us realize that the smartest person in the room is often the funniest. Her chemistry with Frasier Crane was a masterclass in tragic comedy. The struggle for Neuwirth was never about ability, but about perception. For years, the world wanted her to be Lilith, the icy psychiatrist, often ignoring the vibrant, passionate dancer who had won Tony Awards on Broadway. Breaking free from the caricature to be recognized for her immense physical and musical talent was a journey of persistence. She had to prove she could sing, dance, and bleed, not just analyze. She succeeded brilliantly, returning to the stage to become a legend in Chicago and beyond. Today, she defies the slowing of time. As of December 16, 2025, she is still captivating audiences. Just weeks ago, she attended the Dance Hall of Fame ceremony, proving her elegance remains untouched. She stands before us at current age 67, approaching her 68th birthday. Bebe Neuwirth remains a titan of both stage and screen, the woman who taught us that even ice queens have a soul of fire. John Ratzenberger as Cliff Clavin. John Ratzenberger was a man who understood the art of the hustle. Born in the spring of 1947, specifically April 6th, he was a carpenter and an improviser long before he was a mailman. He was 35 years old when he walked into the audition room, sensing he had lost the part he read for. In a moment of brilliance, he invented a character on the spot, a bar know-it-all, and pitched it to the producers as he was walking out the door. That split-second decision changed television history. Cliff Clavin was the bore we couldn't ignore. With his white socks and his endless stream of dubious facts, he was the personification of awkward confidence. We laughed at him, but we also recognized him. He was every neighbor who talks too much, every uncle with a conspiracy theory. Ratzenberger played him with such commitment that Cliff became lovable in his annoyance, a pathetic yet proud figure who wore his mail carrier uniform like a suit of armor. While Cliff Clavin was trapped in his mother's house, Ratzenberger was often trapped by the voice he created. It can be a lonely path to be the funny voice guy, to be seen as the caricature rather than the man. Yet he transformed this limitation into a new empire. He became the Lucky Charm of Pixar animation, lending his voice to hit after hit, ensuring that even if we didn't see his face, we felt his presence. He has spent the last few decades as a guardian of American manufacturing and a voice for the skilled trades, using his platform for causes he believes in. He is still working, still acting, and still possessing that quick wit that saved his audition 40 years ago. He is now at the current age of 78. John Ratzenberger is the survivor, the improviser who talked his way into a legend and stayed there. He proved that a little bit of trivia, even if it's wrong, can take you a long way. Shelley Long, as Diane Chambers. Shelley Long was the spark that lit the fire. Born in the summer of 1949, specifically August 23rd, she possessed a comedic timing that was rare and precise. She was 33 years old when she donned the apron of Diane Chambers. She wasn't just a pretty face. She was a force of nature who understood the delicate dance of physical comedy and verbal sparring. She brought a sophistication to the role that elevated the entire premise of the show. Diane Chambers was the fish out of water. Her pretentiousness clashed beautifully with the gritty reality of the bar, creating the greatest will-they-won't-they dynamic in television history. We were captivated by her because she was annoying, yes, but she was also striving for something more. Her departure after season 5 left a void that the show survived, but never quite forgot. She was the golden era, the original muse, but leaving the biggest show on television is a heavy burden to carry. Her decision to quit in 1987 to pursue films was met with skepticism, and the years that followed were difficult. There were whispers of tension on set, clashes of style with Ted Danson, and the crushing weight of public expectation that she never quite met in the movie world. She retreated into a more private life, becoming somewhat reclusive, shielding herself from the harsh glare that follows a superstar who steps away. In recent years, she resurfaced in roles like Modern Family, reminding the world that her talent had never faded, only rested. She lives a quiet life now, far removed from the chaotic energy of the bar she once ruled. She is now at the current age of 76. Shelley Long remains the sophisticated heart of the early years, the woman who taught Sam Malone and all of us that opposites don't just attract, they ignite. Rhea Perlman as Carla Tortelli. Rhea Perlman was born to be tough. Born in the spring of 1948, specifically March 31st, she had a scrappy, undeniable energy. She was 34 years old when she was cast as Carla, the very first actor to officially join the ensemble. Before the fame, she was already part of a power couple with Danny DeVito, living a life of artistic grind and shared dreams. She didn't need to act tough. She had the spirit of a survivor etched into her DNA. Carla Tortelli was pure aggression and superstition. She was the waitress from hell who we secretly wanted to serve us. We loved her because she had zero filter. She said what we were all thinking but were too polite to utter. Her hatred for Diane, her reverence for Sam, and her chaotic home life created a character that was fiercely loyal and terrifyingly funny. She won 4 Emmy Awards because she made bitterness look like an art form. Her real life, however, required a different kind of strength. Her long-term marriage to Danny DeVito was a Hollywood landmark, but it was not without its public trials and eventual separation. To live a life in the public eye where your relationship struggles are fodder for tabloids requires a thick skin, something Carla Tortelli would have appreciated. Yet through the separations and the heartaches, she maintained a dignity and a continued creative partnership that spoke to her maturity. She never stopped working. From Barbie to Poker Face, she has remained a vital, hilarious presence in Hollywood. She adapted to the times, bringing her signature snark to new generations who might not even know the name of the bar she once cleaned. She is now at the current age of 77. Rhea Perlman stands as the enduring tough girl, the one who showed us that you can be small, you can be mean, but if you have heart, you will be loved forever. Kelsey Grammer as Dr. Frasier Crane. Kelsey Grammer carried tragedy in his soul long before he found comedy. Born in 1955, specifically February 21st, his early life was marred by profound family losses that would have broken a lesser man. He was 27 years old, young, classically trained, and incredibly intense when he was hired for a 6-episode arc on Cheers. He was meant to be a temporary roadblock in the romance of Sam and Diane, a character designed to be disliked and discarded. But something magical happened. Frasier Crane, with his pompous vocabulary and his desperate need for acceptance, charmed the audience. Grammer played him with such vulnerability that the writers couldn't let him go. He turned a stiff psychiatrist into one of the most complex characters in television history. We laughed at his arrogance, but we cried for his loneliness. He was the intellectual who just wanted to be one of the guys. Behind the success of Cheers and the colossal fame of the spin-off, Frasier Grammer fought demons that were widely publicized. Health scares, addiction battles, and marital strifes played out in the headlines. The weight of playing the same character for 20 years, a record in itself, can blur the lines of identity. He carried the burden of the Crane legacy, a golden handcuff that brought him riches but demanded his soul. Yet, like a phoenix, he rises. He returned to the role that made him a legend in the recent revival, proving that Frasier Crane still has stories to tell. He defied the odds of typecasting by simply embracing the type and mastering it completely. He stands tall at the current age of 70. Kelsey Grammer is the king of the sitcom, the man who turned a temporary gig into a 40-year reign, proving that sometimes the guest who arrives late is the one who keeps the party going. The closed sign now hangs on the door of the Bull and Finch pub. Standing here in late 2025, the laughter feels bittersweet. We have said our tearful goodbyes to the spirited Kirstie Alley and the gentle coach leaving empty stools that no one can fill. Yet the magic remains. They taught us that even when the world is cold, there is a place where we belong. To the ones still here and the ones raising a glass in the stars, thank you for the joy. We will always be glad you came.